For more on the situation in Los Angeles, let's welcome in civil rights attorney Leo Terrell. He's also the host of the Leo Terrell podcast. Also joining us today, Michelle Malkin, host of Michelle Malkin's Sovereign Nation, which you can catch each weekend right here on NEWSMAX TV. Michelle is also the author of the best-selling book, Open Borders, Inc., Who's Funding America's Destruction. Normally I say ladies first, but Leo, let's start with you because of geography here. What is the latest on the ground of the situation in L.A.? You know, things... Obviously, protesters there, but the L.A. County Sheriff, Alex Villanueva, he's been under fire from the ACLU and Black Lives Matter Los Angeles. Is he going to lose his job over this?
Well, I think he's going to face a stiff re-election campaign. I think Black Lives has made it very clear they want him out. As far as his shooting last night, the facts, we don't know. I mean, we do know that Black Lives Matter and these extremist groups are well organized. Once the shooting occurred, they start protesting. They've already rendered a verdict that the sheriff department and law enforcement is guilty. I say, no, we don't rush to judgment. We let the criminal justice system work its way out. And at this point right now, very few facts, John, that we know of.
And that's why we love to have you, Leo, because we always push for due process, wait for all the facts to come out. But, Michelle, when it comes to Alex Villanueva, he's playing the same game that guys like Ted Wheeler are playing, where they flirt with these radical elements, these Marxist elements, and he's getting pushback now. Villanueva is from top Homeland Security officials, and this is kind of his political nature here. He is pushing for this policy, sanctuary city policy for L.A. County, which basically means if an L.A. County Sheriff's deputy arrests an illegal immigrant, no matter what the charge, they're not going to tell ICE about this. Acting Director of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration, Ken Cuccinelli, said this. He wrote a letter to Villanueva asking him to rethink his policy, calling these criminals, quote, the very worst, and encourage the sheriff to work with ICE to keep communities safe. So, Michelle, Alex Villanueva getting it from both sides here.
Yeah, look, I started my journalism career in Los Angeles, and it's been a safe space, a sanctuary for all sorts of criminals, whether they're criminal aliens or members of domestic terrorist groups like Black Lives Matter and Antifa. It's gone on and on for the last 30 years. And, you know, the fact is that ever since Rodney King, there's never been a very deliberate and cautionary approach to these matters. And this is why both in Los Angeles and in Portland and across the country, you've got law enforcement rank and file who are refusing to go along with these enablers of the riot situation and anarchists. And that's what's happening in Portland right now, right?
Yeah, you don't know. I mean, if you're an officer, if you're deputy, you don't know who's in charge, right? Is it the sheriff or is it the ACLU or BLM LA?
And as two sheriffs in the Portland suburbs are now saying, we're not going to send our men in there if we're going to send them in there to make arrests and then have Soros aligned or Soros adjacent or directly Soros subsidized DAs drop the charges against the people that the LEOs are risking their lives to arrest in the first place. I want to make a quick clarification because it's very important that people know that Jay Bishop, who was identified by one of these Antifa sympathetic media outlets called the Portland Mercury, is not the same man as Aaron J. Danielson, who was the man that was killed in Portland. And the Portland Mercury came out and said, oopsie, we got them wrong. Jay Bishop happened to be somebody who was affiliated with the conservative and patriot protests, but he's a completely different person. And I would think that there are some consequences that need to be borne for that. It just illustrates that it's such a fluid situation. We don't know the facts. People need to restrain themselves.
It is, Michelle, because we heard these names being talked about yesterday, and today we were going back and forth. Several media outlets identified him as both names, Aaron Danielson, also known as Jay Bishop. But you have the facts here. Just set us straight one more time so it's all clear.
Yeah, the Portland Mercury, which is the one that spread Jay Bishop's name early and often, finally admitted late last night that their story had, quote, originally misidentified the victim as Jay Bishop, a man also affiliated with right-wing protests. The victim is now correctly identified as Aaron Danielson, who went by the nickname Jay. We deeply regret this error. And my opinion on this, having covered these people, is it really strains credulity to believe that this was an innocent mistake.
Yeah, I mean, I saw, you know, even people like Amy Kramer from Tea Party Patriots talking about Jay Bishop's name. So, you know, sometimes, like we said, we always talk about this. The facts come in their own timeline. We don't get to determine that. Sometimes the situation is fluid, but we try to stay on top of it. Michelle, we want to talk a little bit more about Portland, and thank you for that clarification again, because these things do matter, at least here on this program. Let's talk about what happened to Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler, Tear Gas Teddy. Here are some scenes from his birthday party last night. Oh, I'm sorry. Here he was talking about President Trump and blaming him for the violence we've seen in Portland.
President Trump, for 4 years, we've had to live with you and your racist attacks on black people. Do you seriously wonder, Mr. President, why this is the first time in decades that America has seen this level of violence? What America needs is for you to be stopped so that we can come back together as one America. So I'm going to do the work that I need to do here in my local community with my local officials to take accountability for what's happening on our streets. And I'd appreciate that either the president support us or he stay the hell out of the way.
Now, Leo, he was reading from prepared remarks at the beginning of that soundbite there. And who is he talking to really there? Is he talking to President Trump, or is he basically trying to communicate to these protesters, please don't come to my house. I'll do and say whatever you want me to do. Please, God, do not protest me.
Let me be very clear. He's talking to himself. He's talking only to himself. I'll tell you why. Because the criminals are not listening to him. They hate him. They dislike him. They're not responding to him. I find it perplexing for him to defend these criminals. And then he tries to throw the president under the bus, the man who is responsible for trying to offer assistance, the president who's been demanding law and order, the only person who is supported by the police union. The bottom line is this: the Democratic mayors throughout this country have made a deal with the devil. Black Lives Matter and Antifa, and they're getting nothing in return. And they use this playbook up until about 2 days ago, when they're now singing a different song. Why? Because the polls are shifting in favor of President Trump. And so what is happening right now is these cities are burning. They're being looted. They have no respect for the mayor. That's why he had a nice fire celebration for his birthday out in front of his house. And this is going to continue. And the public is finally waking up that the president is the only person who can establish law and order. Why they deny federal assistance is purely politics at the expense of these cities being burned to the ground.
Michelle?
Yeah, Ted Wheeler is a pathetic invertebrate. And I think there's a reap-sow factor here among all of these Democrat mayors, governors, and police chiefs for that matter. And in fact, what you're seeing, it's not being covered by most of the corporate media, is that the backlash by these insatiable mobs now marching onto the homes of not just Ted Wheeler, but the mayors in Seattle and Los Angeles, DAs as well. These people cannot be appeased. And when you play with fire, you will get burned. And that's what's happening.
That is the best way to put it, because there's little fire on the streets, and these mayors are getting burned. And it's the DAs, too, that play this game as well. They're getting burned as well. Michelle Malk and Leo Terrell, great to see you both. Great segment. We'll see you again real soon. All right, Ken,